everyone. As I am going deeper and deeper into the research for my next book on the future of work, I am excited and delighted to have with me, and actually curious to have with me, Himanshu Joshi. Himanshu Joshi joins us from Toronto in Canada and is working currently as an applied AI lead at the Vector Institute. He's also a clinical professor of practice, innovation strategic management and entrepreneurship at Washington University, and an innovation and business mentor from Cambridge. He's also done a program at MIT and has spent time across almost 70 or different countries around the world. And he's going to tell us a little bit more about his global experience as well. Himanshu, first of all, thank you so much for doing this and welcome to this conversation.
Thank you very much, Vibha. Hi, everyone. It's indeed a pleasure and honor to be here with you. I'm looking forward to this conversation and whatever impact your book is going to create for our next set of leaders in future.
Thank you so much. That was a very kind and warm introduction. All right, so Himanshu, let's jump right into this. I know that you've just recently been named top voice of AI on LinkedIn for 2023. Firstly, congratulations on that. With all the noise and voices on LinkedIn, to be ranked in the top voices of AI is truly commendable. So first of all, congratulations on that accolade. Now, as you know, we're working on this book. It's about careers of the future. Just at the outset, just to sort of lay the land in the context, what according to you will be factors that are going to affect the future of work? What are some of the factors that are leading to changes in the future by 2040?
Sure. First of all, thank you very much for those nice words. So it's just my way of giving it back to the ecosystem. Whatever little I learn, I tend to pass it on to my other friends and contacts who are there on LinkedIn, like a family. So coming back to your question, I think what would be crucial for next years for our future leaders would be to come to terms with the deeper integration of technology with our daily and professional lives. We have seen it in the last 20 years, how IT revolution and the mobile revolution has changed. But for us, the benefit is the millennials and the Gen Zs are generally very much tech savvy. They have seen it happening. They grew up in these gadgets with these gadgets. So it will be easy for them to get integrated. But as we evolve, you will find that a lot of machines, a lot of bots, a lot of AI is integrated to our day-to-day lives. That could free up a lot of our time, a lot of our creativity, which humans could use for more human-to-human connect, for human-like work, which cannot be done by machines. So anything which is repetitive, which is the daily routine, drudgery work, could be offloaded to a machine, a bot. And the rest of it, which is very productive, which is for community empowerment, that could be undertaken by the future leaders. And I would see what we will see more often, more frequent. It's already happening, but you will see it as a commonplace now, will be collective intelligence of humans and machines, where you would have humans and machines. When I say machines, it includes robots, it includes our computers, personal computers, our phones, and a lot of new technologies ranging from artificial intelligence to virtual reality, augmented reality, and the enablers in terms of the communication networks, 5G, 6G, IoT, which will make us get connected to people millions of, I would say, meters away. People who are like not in the same continent, same time zone could connect as if they are like in front of each other. That will happen, and that will shape a lot of our learnings are jobs of the future. And because people will have to prepare for these, so their education, how they groom themselves, how they upskill themselves would also be very much impacted by these changes.
Okay. So that's a very profound opening statement. Lots of layers to that statement. I'm going to just now dissect that piecemeal. Firstly, you said a lot of redundant, repetitive jobs will get replaced by AI or bots. Let's take that one point and go a little bit deeper and flesh that out. Can you illustrate using very specific examples of industries where you're seeing this happen today and some sort of futuristic applications of the same?
Sure. So all of us use emails to communicate. And just imagine if you have to send out a email which is to go to 100 recipients. One way is you just send a bulk email. Nobody pays any attention to it because it just goes to spam because it's very common. Does not make any sense to most of the people. But now you want to approach each and every person with a personalized email, which has been curated for them with some personalized message, perhaps a personalized infographic, a video or a picture of theirs. It's possible now. So you will see these kind of tools being available. And if you go down a little back in last few months, big tech also have offered these kind of mail merge techniques where you could actually personalize emails in no time. And soon, with the kind of technology which we have, which are coming through because of the generative AI, you could create using diffusion models, you could create very personalized uh, videos and pictures. Again, the bad actors may use it for deepfakes to kind of create bad kind of content on online. But for the good use would be, let's say there's a travel agency which wants to offer you that, okay, ma'am, why don't you go to Mauritius for your holidays? And based on your own data, which you have publicly shared, which is available on your public profile, on your Instagram, Facebook, they take your permission, they create a video of yours or a picture of yours, you enjoying kite surfing or some water sports in one of the beaches at Mauritius. So you have not been there yet, but you get a visual of it. You yourself. It's not somebody else. It's not a celebrity or an advertisement model. But that is the ratio of personalization which can be bringing, and it is not very far. You will see it happening in next few months now. That and it's will be with due permission of the concerned individual that the companies will seek your approval that can we use your pictures, and then accordingly it could happen. And it's something which will create that kind of bond between the service provider and the consumer, that they will find it personalized. So that's one good example which is going to happen.
So
And similarly, the
personalization
business
in sales
correspondent.
and marketing. That's the example you're saying.
Exactly, yeah. So I'm just giving example of marketing, but it could be utilized for business communication also when you have to like reach out with the particular content. For example, there's a relationship manager in a bank, and she takes 10 calls in a day. By the end of the day, she has to send out very personalized emails. So you just have to have a bot which is accompanying the call, and the bot prepares the summary of the conversation. Subsequently, extends it to a very personalized email. So the relationship manager just reviews it, prepares it, and sends it. So at the end of the day, you have sent very personalized, very custom-made emails to those 10 individuals. Chances of converting those prospective clients to a permanent client would be much higher when they get what they were promised, what they were spoken to, vis-a-vis the kind of generic emails which generally would come to your inbox, which you may not even intend to open. So that is the kind of customization which can be done, and it can happen because there are techniques available which could monitor this conversation. Let's say we are into a conversation, it's a business conversation, it gets recorded, it gets transcribed. From there, there's a summarization tool which summarizes it, and it translates into an email which you have already created a template of, that it should have XYZ kind of subsets, and it provides the whole bulletin. You just have to review it. So it's like an intern who's working with you, provides you a draft. So these bots can provide you those drafts, and then it's like much easier, much faster. It saves so much of time and increases productivity to a greater level.
So this sounds both examples you shared sound fantastic. As an individual business owner, somebody like me running a small and medium business, are these tools going to be now just available online, and then or you sort of are these is this become like a SaaS product now where there's a AI for marketing, AI for sales? Is it like that where there's a subscription based
Exactly. Yeah.
model? Is that what you're seeing
Yes.
coming?
What's happening is, like, for example, the technology behind this is generative AI, which has certain techniques which are powering these tools. So a lot of companies, smaller companies, have been able to provide very specific personas of uh, particular professionals. So for example, let's say for your company, you would need somebody who could assist your marketing team as a marketing agent, somebody who could assist your recruiting team or HR team as an HR agent to take out job descriptions, to do some kind of work for publishing articles which are related to the work that you are doing. So there are these personas which can be created, and these models are capable of, by retrieving the information of that particular role, let's say marketing specialist, sales specialist, HR specialist, internal communication specialist, they could create those templates and they could provide you those details very specifically for your company. It would not be very generic that they are pulling out something from the internet and it is very generic. So this kind of customization to the requirement of the customer, to that very specific detail of that particular company can be done because these models. So if you see the GPTs on OpenAI's platform, there are almost, I think, 2 million plus transformers or GPTs which are available. There are few of them are very specific to a particular vertical. It could be for marketing, could be for sales, could be for HR, could be for augmenting the internal
Is,
communication.
is the
It can be
onus
utilized.
on business owners to go figure this out? Or I mean, because there's technical business owners and there's people who are just like, I don't understand this technology, but I'm happy to use it. So how is
Yeah,
the
so there
sort of
are,
common man
yeah.
supposed to use this?
So essentially, what's happening now, there are facilitators or aggregators who are coming up with these solutions. So you'll find a lot of marketing companies, traditional marketing companies, will now try to imbibe AI in their products and start offering these products to their clients. It's already happening in this part of the world. I'm sure it will be happening in the rest of the world as well, because you would like to enhance the productivity of individuals. So
Sure, of
for
course.
creating a copy, a marketing person would have taken, let's say, 10 hours because they had to work very hard for it. Now you could get the first draft in few seconds,
Yeah,
and
sure.
then definitely you can prepare it to more detail. So the work which could take 10 hours could get over in 1 or 2 hours, and you have the rest of the time available to either take on more clients or to do something else which is more productive,
Sure,
which is
sure. I
more creative.
understand. I understood the use case, but I was just trying to understand the implementation of it. And you're saying that companies are emerging that will start doing the implementation of it as well.
Yes, it's happening now. It's happening as we go. There are companies which are offering these solutions and they're giving you free demos and POCs to try out.
Okay. And how do you see this evolving? Like this is what's going on now. You know, what is the futuristic scenario on this? What do you think is going to happen in the next 10 or 15 years? What is going to what is the human versus machine equation going to be if
Yeah.
everything is botified? Then what happens in 2040?
So I think 2040 may be a little far off, but if we look a few years from now itself, a lot of these tasks would get automated. That leaves us as humans to do two things. Either we don't do anything, and that should not be the case. So we do a lot of other things which we couldn't do otherwise. It could be creative engagement. It could be that human to human connect. But that will be something which would be missing. Now, because as things get digitalized, as things become very, very automated, machine focused, it's important to have that human in the center of the equation. So a lot of research and a lot of productification is happening now where you're trying to have human in the center and all machines, all robots around it, so that the collective wisdom which comes out of it gets created. You will see this happening now in terms of techniques which could make human beings. Perhaps there's somebody who has not had vision since birth. That person has not seen this beautiful earth, has not seen nature. So tools like Neuralink, which is being tried out now on human subjects, could allow people with complete blindness or perhaps disability of certain body parts to actually utilize those body parts as it was. So it's an amalgamation of technology, artificial intelligence, machine vision, computer vision to enhance human ability. That is what is going to take us to the next level as the most, I would say, intelligent species on Earth. And this same technology can be utilized to fight the challenges which we have today in our society and in our planet, from climate change to the inequality, the poverty, uneducation. Those tools can be utilized. For example, you come to Harvard and give a lecture in English. I'm a student sitting somewhere in Philippines. I don't understand English, but I can, by the virtue of technology today, I can have the translated version live sitting in that remote village somewhere in Philippines on a remote island, in my own language, I could understand what you're saying. I could assimilate everything. So my learning, my empowerment is phenomenal. I do not have to travel thousands of miles, pay a premium to attend your lecture. So
Mhm.
that is what is happening. That is the enablement which this technology can do if it is utilized in a manner which humans should, because a lot of things which we found repetitive, redundant, can be offloaded to these bots and agents.
Okay, cool. Okay, great. I think you've given us a great sense of different use cases for this technology as of today. Uh, any thoughts of, how do you see this evolving in the future? This is what's going on right now, right? And everyone's talking about this, like elimination of redundant tasks, man and machine. It's not man versus machine. It's co-botting, etc. And this looks like the very near future, it's sort of an imminent future of humanity. Where do you see this going? Like, are you seeing a world where, like, literally everything we do is run by machines and robots, or do you think it's a far-fetched world? Like, where do you stand on this spectrum?
So a lot of things which do not require human sentiments can definitely be offloaded to the bots and machines. They'll do it well because there has been a human behind designing them, and till the time they are accordingly aligned to those protocols, which are aligned to the protocols of society, community, they'll work very well. Smart cities, self-driving cars are good examples of them, and it's working. Like when you drive a self-driving car, it actually takes a lot of pressure on from you as a driver, and you could, and those tools are definitely much more safer than what a human driver would do. Yeah, there are some exceptions, there are some accidents, but then those numbers are less. But again, that's a different discussion for a different day. These tools will definitely allow us to become little more free of more space. That space could be utilized for things which have been pending so far. So one example would be, again, technology like the recoverable rocket which is being launched by SpaceX has made the cost of sending 1 kg payload to space to some hundreds of dollars. It will come down to some $50. It is less than sending a courier from Bangalore, overnight courier from Bangalore to Mumbai for that matter. But about 50 years back, when we initially started space exploration, it would cost you almost $70,000 plus to send 1 kilogram of payload. Now, with this, that means slowly and steadily, when the infrastructure gets created in space, humans would be able to sustainably operate from space, moon, Mars. That is the direction where civilization will move. So that's why, similarly, if you see in any other field, it could be field of creative work, it could be field of biomedicine and healthcare. There are so many diseases we have not been able to find the right treatment, cancer, or a lot of other fatal diseases where still we are yet to make a breakthrough. Those breakthroughs may be possible with these technologies because something, for example, the kind of work which is done for doing drug discovery takes 10 to 15 years of research and subsequently the rest of the compliance and approvals. Now that work gets shortened in time because a lot of structuring of molecules, how will they appear, can be done through these models, generative AI diffusion models, which can allow the scientists to kind of shorten this cycle. This
Mhm.
then technology like gene editing is again a transformational technology which can allow us to cure a lot of genetic diseases. So people would get a new lease of life and they could perhaps change the way things have been so far. So they are transformational.
Definitely transformational. Just to play devil's advocate, a lot of the things you mentioned, depending on who's constructing, who's the engineer, chief engineer behind this, could go one way or the other, right? You could use gene editing to solve for diseases. You could use gene editing to build a new race of warriors and then try to decimate the rest of humanity, right? So, just as an extreme example. So, are you seeing such contradictions? And would you want to share some examples of, like, look,
Yeah,
here's how you could, this is a good and this is a bad, like gloom and boom scenario.
exactly.
It's the
Yeah,
same thing.
absolutely. Like any for anything, any technology, any power comes with a great responsibility. So I think there are multi layers which would require to be implemented to solve this particular problem. Any powerful tool technology can be used for good purposes by good actors, and if they are misused, they can create havoc, like you said. Absolutely. So the way we have had international protocols, regulations, understanding for, let's say, not to use or misuse nuclear weapons, right? It is an international understanding amongst the countries, between the countries. There are a lot of protocols on this because we know it
Sure.
can be catastrophic. It has happened in past, so people know it very well, right? So these kind of international regulations, protocols will come in place. Again, there are conversations on this. They are catching up.
Sure.
It will happen. Then society as such will evolve to understand that what are the ethical and responsible means of using these technologies.
Okay,
So
so
something like this happens.
I'll get into the ethics of it. But before we jump into the ethics, any gloom boom scenarios that come to mind where
Yeah, it can happen. Yeah, like you said, and a lot of thanks to the Hollywood and Bollywood, there are a lot of movies which demonstrate these kind of bad actors taking over. It can happen, but why it should be avoided is because it can be detrimental. It could be catastrophic, as you mentioned,
like
and these.
in a marketing example, right? You mentioned sales and marketing examples. What would be, you explain the happy scenario, right? Somebody can reduce your workload, somebody can send a picture of you on this cover of a Mauritius travel magazine, etc. How could things go wrong? What is the
Yeah,
negative
yeah.
side?
Negative side, you've been seeing it. There are a lot of misinformation on the media. People could create deepfake videos, and I think last week they posted a couple of world leaders videos saying something for taking an action which they never said. Right, so it could cause a lot of misinformation, especially when there are very important events in a particular community or society or a nation, let's say elections, or there are geopolitical situations which are brewing across the globe. So that is the bad actor
Mm.
acting, misusing these technologies. Unfortunately, because these technologies are available for human good, for changing and uplifting one community to the another level, but they are also available for people to misuse, for hacking, for trying to get into systems or create misinformation, or like you said, gene editing, going in a different direction to create things which can go out of control. So
Okay.
perhaps that is why we are humans, and that is why it is on us to kind of regulate it or put these practices in terms of more ethical behavior at all levels. Uh, Including individual levels. And whenever we talk about it, I'll tell you what's happening and what should happen in terms of ethics, how
Let's
we
seg
can actually
let's
evolve
segue
it.
right into that then. Let's talk a little bit about, like, what sort of ethical frameworks would you recommend, and how first let's talk about the frameworks, and then let's talk about the implementation of those frameworks.
Yeah. So I'll just give you a couple of examples. Ethics would mean differently in different cultures. For example, there's a famous trolley test which generally is done to tell the decision making for an autonomous agent or autonomous vehicle. So it's like there's a trolley on a train track, and a trolley either has to like take down an old person or take down a younger person. It has to. It's either or. There's no other option if the trolley has to move or trolley has to kind of. So if the respondents are from Western cultures, they would say because the trolley has to take down somebody. Somebody has to be killed. So let the elder person get killed because that person has already lived their life.
Sure.
Younger generation should flourish because they have lot to live, lot to give.
And
Whereas the Eastern cultures,
they would say
they believe that yes,
respect the elderly.
yes, they believe in respecting the elderly. Both are right. Nothing is wrong. Because you have given these two options only, ideally nobody should get killed, right? But
Yeah.
because of this, I'm just because it's a hypothetical situation because
Sure,
they're just
sure.
testing the algorithm or testing the system. Similarly, you will find different people will mean different things to ethics. But one thing which comes very very categorically common if you study like that generally for when they teach ethics to the technology leaders, and especially now it's like mandatory course in a lot of schools, universities, to learn something called AI and ethics in AI and AI principles, where they're teaching about 10 different cultural aspects of ethics from different, and oldest one it comes from India, the Hindu culture, then it goes to Buddhism, Jainism, then the Chinese, ancient Chinese thoughts, then Islam, then the modern society, the feminism. All of them have one thing in common, which is what is the final intent of doing a particular action, and
Mm.
each action has a repercussion. So how do you align it? So the idea is to bring these ethical practices or principles to the daily life understanding of everyone, at least the people who are designing and developing these models, these solutions. So before they make it, they think on their own, is it right or wrong? What will be the implication of this particular tool if I design it, if somebody misuses it? So a 20, 21-year-old young developer, when he or she joins the company or they start working on a project, they will have that in back of their mind on their own.
Okay.
Then this is one level as an individual level. Then in teams and companies, most of the companies are coming up with something called the AI ethics officer or ethics officer or the AI ethics and risk officer. So these people are actually trying to put some frameworks which
Mm.
will check, will this solution be helpful to the mankind in future, humankind in future? If all the companies of, let's say it's a marketing company, all marketing companies in this geography and all the companies of this type across the globe, if they use this particular model, will human race survive in next 10 years or not, or will it have a detrimental effect on us or not? And lastly, very importantly, again going back to the intent, whatever we are developing, whatever data we are collecting, are we using humans just as somebody to extract data, or it'll actually be helping humans,
Mm.
actually be helping customers, or we're just trying to kind of just take a shortcut and fool the system. So if these checks and balances are there at all levels, you will find the individual will check. He or she may raise the hand saying that this is not ethical, I'll not do it. It has some biases, it is irresponsible, or it is not diversified, the data is not diversified. So I'll give you some examples which will tell you knowingly and knowingly it has happened in past when these developers didn't know that the data which they are using is not unbiased. It has created a lot of problems in subsequent stages because the models, the data sets generally remain public. Something which was curated 20 years back may be utilized by a student or a researcher now, and the inherent bias in it could get carried forward if it is not mentioned or not understood initially. So the idea is to put these principles into practice at all levels. Similarly, at international level, regulations are coming up which are making these code of conduct mandatory for companies to adhere to.
Are you seeing internationally a global code of conduct emerging? Because what we see now is, EU is coming up with its own. The US, I think, Biden put something together, but I don't think they've really put it into legislation yet. Here in India, it's still very, very open-ended. So,
Yeah. So it's happening at
how is happening?
both the levels. Yeah, it's happening. So because it has to become a law, and law will have to be kind of ratified in the local legislations. That's why it has to be a local law. But there are international bodies which are coming up. So because we talked about India, so December India hosted something called Global Partnership on AI. So where a lot of world leaders were present, they gave their perspective about how to utilize AI for larger good. And researchers and AI leaders across the globe are also divided. There are two sets of them. One who are very, very optimistic about using AI for leveraging human societal changes towards good. They believe that things can transform, education can transform, people can become more self-reliant. They have a lot of tools which can do their general day-to-day repeated work so that they can do very creative work. So their reason of existing on earth gets supported much better. Somebody who wanted to write, somebody who wanted to draw, they could do those focused work and everything else gets taken care of by machine. But there are other people who are little, I would say, skeptical about the technology because they say that if this technology lands in the hand of bad actors, they could do a lot of
Yeah,
harm.
yeah, sure.
And that's what the point which you mentioned. That is why it is important to have these ethical practices, these regulations at all levels, international, so that people exchange best management practices at the national level because it becomes law. People are little afraid of not breaking the law. And at personal level, for
Mm.
each individual, and at company level where you are following these tools. But yes, it will take time. Example, if you would like, a lot of researchers say that AI is the new electricity. It is so, but it took the humankind almost 75 years to adopt electricity the way we use it today. There were a
Mhm.
lot of accidents. There were a lot of inhibitions because people were using what they were using. And there were a lot of other requirements to ensure safe distribution of electricity from the source to the household to the factories. Similarly, it will take time. I'm sure it will not take 75 years. It will take anything less than few years now,
Oh,
but it will be something if used, deployed responsibly, can be really
okay. So
transform.
I like your explanation of like the three layers, right? There's a global layer, then there's a national level layer, and then most importantly, there's an individual layer of ethical consideration. I think that was very beautifully explained. Let's shift gears as you as an educationist, right? Because you mentioned that you're also a coach and a mentor. So from an educational landscape, how do you see the field of education evolving? How much robot versus professor mismatch are you seeing in classrooms? Where are you seeing this going? Because at least as of now, the traditional classrooms still remain fairly traditional, right? There's still a teacher and students, and it's
Yeah.
despite all this talk, the sort of more prominent classrooms in the world still remain very teacher student led. So, but this could change. So, where are you seeing this go to?
Yeah, it's changing. Like you said, initially, a lot of universities and offices had banned use of, for example, ChatGPT and other solutions like this. But I'll give you an example. So last October, one of my MIT professors, Professor Loredana, who right now teaches at Northeastern in Boston, she invited me to speak to her students. And I spoke to them, gave them a general thought about how AI could help them and what are the various tools available and how they can imbibe the idea of being an AI user. And to use AI, they need not be a computer science or AI undergrad or grad. Those students, those researchers will create AI. But to use AI, they could just have to understand it, use it judiciously, responsibly, and ethically, what we talked about
Sure,
earlier.
sure.
And to our surprise, after that this talk, they underwent the innovation course, which was a non-technical, very focused course for creating corporate innovation models. And the whole framework, which was earlier a book, which was like typical classroom lesson in black and white and couple of pictures, these students were able to translate it into a comic book by using these AI image generation tools. Now,
Mhm.
something which was little intimidated in class, that we are talking about AI, how we can use it. They demonstrated that they could utilize these tools to make teaching and learning a very interesting process. So this
Mhm.
public subsequently the professor and the students, they published a paper, and that paper last month won an award also to be one of the most innovative papers in this particular field of adoption of AI in the classroom.
Okay.
And now, more and more classes, more and more professors, schools are adopting a mixed approach where they have these tools officially allowed so that students use them, they kind of experiment with them, bring that learning to the classroom so that, again, the creativity
So
part comes into
you're
force.
seeing
It's
students
happening.
use these, you're seeing faculty members use these, etc. But are you going to see a radical shift? We're talking about not right now, we're talking about the future, the 10 or 15-year horizon. Are you going to see teachers being replaced in classrooms with robots?
I don't
You envision
think
going
that will
back to your
happen.
MIT classroom and a robot is teaching the class. Like, is that what you're
So,
imagining?
yeah, no, I don't think that will ever happen because, something which was, again, going back to the human to human connect, there will be still requirements of exchanging those personal experiences, those sentiments which machines cannot replicate yet, though there is some work going on in that part also. And that is why the repeated part of it can be done by the bots and can be done by machines.
Mhm.
But the part of sharing of experiences, passing on those traits which came through personal experiences, leadership, that will remain very, very valid. And that
But
is what
a
I
lot
think should
of
continue.
the STEM classes don't need any sharing of experiences, right? The physics and
Now,
mathematics classes is repetitive, formula driven, year after year, they teach the same equations and formulas. So, in those situations, I mean, this is not a humanities class, right? It's like I'm talking about just very entry
so
level.
I'll give you example. Yeah. So I'll give you example why it is important. Like for example, there are a lot of concepts of physics which perhaps if we go by the traditional understanding and classroom section, we have not understood, right? So to break it down into simple terms, like for example, if there's a very complex physics theorem, which is difficult to understand in black and white or in a drawing board or on a slide deck, if you just put that to one of these language models bot and you tell them that can you just translate it to me, it may do some description and tell you that this is how it is. But then when you tell them that, okay, tell me, let's say, Boyle's law, if I have to explain it to a 6 year old, then the example which comes out of that, because it assimilates a lot of learnings from a lot of scholars, a lot of research papers, and it translates into something which is very easily explainable, which perhaps, which perhaps senior professor would have not explained. That is the ability which gets evolved with these tools, which comes to the class, and when students use this, like for example, right now I'm just doing a program in AI. This is my fourth master's. So we are we have an assignment where we are trying to use these AI tools to bring certain thought leaders from yesteryears, or I would say, let's say, I have a project where I have to talk to Buddha and talk to him as if he is today, and he has to tell me that based on his teachings, if I have to follow the ethics of Buddhism and create a model which could help the global poverty to go, global unemployment to go, how would it look like? So these models can actually help us do something what a time machine would have done in past. That is the beauty, and that is what is being brought to the class now, and that would change the learning experience. Like for example, again giving another example, Khan Academy is one of the most subscribed online learning platform, and co-founder founder again, he goes back to the same alma mater where both of us come from. So he has a talk where he talks about this, and they have a bot called Sal Khan. I mean, it's called Khan bot or Sal Khan bot. So it talks about how they can connect. They use GPT-4 right now. That how they can utilize these tools to make learning a little more fun. Like if you try to tell a 6 year old what to do, how to do, he or she may not be interested in. But if it's a little more animated, it's a little more fun, it happens. And it happened. I've done it with my younger
So
son who's 6 year
all
old.
the examples you're sharing are sounding like this is pro botification. You might have a situation where a bot can teach a classroom then, and then you might be
Sure.
eradicating teachers out of the classroom then.
So again, I'm saying that it will be a combination of both, because it could be in a way that a lot of other things which would not be like possible through a bot, a teacher would be required, and it could be that a teacher who is having a lot of practical experience, and that's why I see a lot of professors are now evolving their teaching methods also to be more practical using these tools,
Mm.
because they want to be up to date with what's
Still
happening in
relevant.
the
Mm.
system. Yes.
Okay, okay, great. Okay, and also, from a student perspective, from a learning perspective, as students start preparing themselves to be future ready, the so-called future leaders, if they had to future proof from a skilling perspective, what sort of skills would you recommend that somebody who's young imbibes? What kind of skills would you recommend?
So I would say that the point which we mentioned earlier, everyday task should be to remain relevant, because technology, people, life, world moves very fast. And if we try to read up, we try to upskill ourselves, it is a good way to learn what's happening. And then a lot of things which are happening in a particular field can be lifted off from there and deployed and implied in our own day-to-day life or in our own subjects. So that is something which will always keep these students as somebody who's ahead of the curve, as future leaders. That will also bring them to the point where they continue to innovate, continue to use these ideas to create the next solution. And also, what is required is that, if you remember, traditionally we were thinking about soft and hard skills. Now, generally, I think soft and hard skills may not be the right
Mm.
way of describing these traits. So again, based on the research at MIT, they came out with the terminology and a new set of skill sets, which are now called smart and sharp skills. And there's a lot of focus on something which is human to human, which is earlier called soft skills. So that is
Mm.
something which will remain relevant. And the sharp skills are the skills which are again to do with what's happening around you in terms of technology, in terms of, so people will have to be more adapt to the new changes. And that's why, connecting to my previous point, I'm working towards creating an initiative, a platform which is just to connect people to be future ready. So as to use AI, you don't have to be a coder, you don't have to be an AI engineer or a computer science graduate or PhD. You just need to learn how to utilize it. So a marketing expert could utilize it, an HR expert, artist could utilize it. So the idea is to create more of tech translators, tech whisperers, and to specific, it could be AI whisperer in this case, but could be any technology where they are able to understand what is the requirement of the business and then translate it and
So you're
utilize it.
saying,
Because technology will evolve.
I think from a skill set perspective, you said, try to stay relevant, and that honestly would be a bigger skill. If you had to go back to college, Himanshu, what would you study today?
So one thing which I would say I would study in depth would be human history and
History.
yeah, human history and philosophy, because that is something which will keep us what we are, humans. And the point which we said, everything else can be offloaded. That human to human connect
It is
and
so
learning from
interesting.
history.
It's so interesting. This is like in so many interviews, this has come up. It'll be like a super heavily vested person in technology, and I will ask them, "What would you study?" And they say, I would." They think for a bit, and I think I would study the humanities. And I'm like, "Well, you work in tech, you work in deep tech. You're sitting at the frontier of technology." And maybe I think maybe just because they already have this skill set, they might want to augment with philosophy.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I'll give you an example again. So one of the co-founders of deep learning and co-founder of this institute where I'm sitting right now, and the person who is given a lot of credit for the current generation of AI, Dr. Jeffrey Hinton. He essentially is a cognitive psychologist by his core training, and subsequently when he started to think about how machines could do what the human brain does, is a whole connection. So I think anything to do with the work which has been done by the generations of thought leaders across the globe, when you translate, you realize all of them are talking something similar towards the larger good. So that is what is important, because that learning could accordingly be imbibed into the machines. And those who understand what was those teachings, those learnings, they learn it and they accordingly teach these machines. So these machines become more human-like, right? Otherwise, it's all something which is a lift off from the dystopian world of the Hollywood movies, where things are going all berserk and things are not being used for something which we talked about earlier, like not being very human friendly.
Sure, sure. Okay, so as we're sort of nearing the closure of this conversation, if you had to give some advice, in terms of new careers that might emerge, everyone prepares for like generic careers, but you were to give advice saying, guys, if you're 14 years old today or 18 years old today, and there's like youthful age bracket, what are some of the careers some of predictive standpoint? You talked about an AI risk officer, an AI ethical officer as a couple of new sort of emerging job categories. Any other job categories that off the top of your head come to mind?
Yeah, so I'll again come back
We
to a
can have fun
quote
with
from
it.
Dr.
Maybe we can connect 10 years later and be like, hey, Himanshu, you predicted this
Yeah,
job would come and it's here. So
yeah.
just have fun with
Uh,
it. Okay.
Couple of them which are already relevant now, but they're going to be kind of big in near future. And before I go to the list of those, I would quote Dr. Fifi Lee. She is one of the, like, if there is no mother of AI, she is the godmother of AI, and she is the one who's like a very good example of how students can learn and then become the figure. So she leads the Stanford Human Centric AI Institute, and she was a young immigrant who came to US from China at the age of 16, I think, and she learned English as her second language, and then went on to do what she did. So phenomenal professor, phenomenal AI leader. So she has a quote which is that AI will not take your job, but somebody who knows how to use AI may threaten your job. So connecting this dot, because most of the students would like to have some connection between their education and finally, at least that's how the parents would see it, especially back home in India. So very importantly, it is important to connect that. And with that, again, going back to the context which I mentioned, it is important to learn how to use the technology. To drive a car as a Formula One driver or as a car owner, you don't have to manufacture a car, right? You just have to know how to drive it
Sure, sure.
safely, get your license, and drive it safely so that
Yeah.
everybody enjoys and people around
I
you.
just wanted to pick on
So,
like some new job categories. So
yeah,
any
yeah, I'm coming to that. Yeah. So that way I would say that. There's something which you would have heard of called prompt engineer. Prompt
Uh,
engineer is somebody who helps a large language model uh, give better answers.
sure,
And these people need not be technologists. They are
sure.
generally people who are very good with linguistics, people
Great.
who are very good with reasoning and thinking, so that they can connect the dots and prompt the model to bring
Sure,
out good things.
sure.
Right? It's like a cool
Okay,
teacher
so
who could
prompt
prompt the
engineer.
student.
Sure, sounds good.
Similarly, people who would do the translation between tech and business or tech and human beings. So we want to call them AI translators and or AI whisperers or tech whisperers or tech sommelier. That
Okay,
they have sense of everything and they do it for you. So
okay.
in fact, I would call them AI connectors or tech connectors. They are connecting the world with tech because not everybody needs to be in tech, but there is
Sure.
a gap here. Not everybody understands what the business needs or what the customers would need. So this is some area where people could venture into
Sure.
and be ready to connect the dots. That could be something which will transform how we utilize these technologies in future.
You also touched a little bit on space and your interest in space. And that's literally like that's a whole other space, right? We didn't talk about this whole other world out there. Do you really, foresee, a world where we sort of, people are living on Earth, but they're also living on different space stations, and is that going to be an extension of our land mass? Because if that's the case, then we're going to see a whole new job category evolve, right? You're going to need
Yeah,
people who
yeah.
are regulating space. You're going to need people who are space station managers, hotel managers, F&B
It's
managers.
happening.
Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, like you said it, because of, like I mentioned earlier, because of the ease of transportation, commodities and human beings to space, that will definitely allow a lot of other construction to take place. So you could have a space hotel, you could have a space movie studio where you can shoot the movies. In fact, I think Tom Cruise has already signed a contract to shoot a movie in space. It's possible. And now lots and lots of commercial space stations are coming up. It's not far from now that we'll have people living as permanent settlement in space, moon, and to an extent in few years from now to Mars. There is a race going on both amongst private players as well as between countries. So this is a different set of people who would be not only capable of being the current day, we can call them uh, I'll not call them astronauts because astronauts are very highly definitely trained people. So this could be people who are actually allowing these kind of space ventures to take off, and they provide the expertise in terms of creating these facilities. So you will be still like being a alpinist or being a mountaineer, that you go up to the mountains and you do different roles, or you being a diver, deep sea diver, you could be a dive master, you could be a dive assistant, but then you're taking, sometimes there are tourists, sometimes there are expert divers or mountaineers. So everybody is a mountaineer. The guy who's the person who has scaled Mount Everest as well as this. So everybody would go to space in different capacities, but then there can be a lot of interesting roles which people could sign up for.
Okay, great. Okay, terrific. And anything you want to say, as you close out, would you any advice, general advice to somebody young watching and listening and sort of preparing and being anxious about the future? What do you have to say to them?
Yeah, I would say that be a lifelong learner, and learning does not end anytime soon. So, and these technologies will come and go or get replaced with. What you need to do is be very, very flexible and adaptive to what's happening around you. Don't get stuck to one thing because, again, because we are talking about the customs. So, if you believe in Hindu tradition, reincarnation as a human being is like after many millions of births, right? So, one life is good enough for us to do a lot of things. So, you can always learn and change your roles, do new things. And specialization per se is for insects. If you follow the taxonomy of biology in school, so as human beings, you can do many things, and that is what should be the mantra, that adapt, learn, and upscale yourself. Try 100 things in your lifetime. You would be successful because there are tools, technology to assist you to achieve that kind of expertise. Yes, you will have to put in some amount of work, some amount of hours to learn it, but nothing is impossible. And as these things get offload it to technology, to those bots, you can do more things which you always wanted to do. Again, going back to
Sure.
going to
Okay.
do
Great.
whatever things you want to do.
Thank you, Himanshu. And I feel like you're somebody who definitely practices what they preach, because I feel like in such a short life, you already rebirthed yourself with new skills and new areas, new industries, new roles. I can't wait to see what you do next, Himanshu. And I love your optimism. I love your zest. I love your curiosity. I love how you've repurposed, what you've been doing so far, and you really, you put your money where your mouth is by saying you've got to just be rebirthing yourself in one life. You can live just 7 or 9 or whatever 11 lives, that
Yeah,
as many as you're lucky enough to see. And I'm truly thrilled to have had this opportunity to talk to you, because I'm going to plan my next birthing party very soon, because this, it really pushed me to sort of extend the frontiers of what I'm doing right now. Very inspirational, absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
my pleasure indeed. And I wish you and your team and everybody who will be reading your book a lot of success and looking forward to its launch. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.